Dr. Pendulum looked at the bubbling liquids in his fermenting concoction placed in the array of multicolored test tubes in his laboratory. He dropped in a vial of acid and made some notes. Strange. It had a different reaction to the compound than yesterday's experiment. In fact, it had never had this reaction before. This could mean only one thing. He was getting close to discovering the secrets he had been looking for all these years. His life's work. It all began with the principles of Dianetics and how sound might heal the body. Also, the principle that the first step towards healing is knowing that you will be healed. He had become interested in molecules and also towards splitting the atom simultaneously, as this is the way his mind always thought. With many things going on all at once, it occurred to him that he may have been able to split the molecular structure of human DNA. But what then? Maybe he could get inside the inner molecules and with a process of disruptions insert sound waves inside them, bind them together, and through a process of chemical-based infusions, teach the body to heal itself from any disease. This could be groundbreaking, not to mention the benefits for the human race. No more sickness. Everything would have a cure. Of course, the other scientists and people all around will say I'm mad and probably delusional, but I pay no attention to them. The truth in my hypothesis, and one day I will find the answers, and in this moment the world will be changed forever. And for the better, too. He looked around his lab. A solitary light bulb swung from left to right in the ceiling above him, illuminating the room partially. The windows were open, and a warm breeze from the night outside was coming in. The street outside seemed unearthly silent. In the distance, a cat bayed out to the night. He reached out and flicked on the nearby table lamp, spreading a wash of white light all along his experimentation area. The liquids bubbled and smoke rose in the air. The compound he was working on seemed to be changing consistency and color. It was now bright green with a chalk-like substance accumulating on the bottom. If he could just get it to split. He leaned forward with his surgical prodding device, but was interrupted from his thoughts by a loud banging at the door. He looked up from his studies, thinking it may perhaps be some kind of moment of delusional hallucination brought on by overwork. There was silence. He almost returned to his work, but there was another knock, louder and more intrusive than the first. Irritably, he put down his apparatus and stomped over to the door, muttering under his breath about who would have the audacity to disturb him at this hour during a crucial moment in his work. He opened the door and felt the warm wind from outside wash over his face. He looked out into the dark. Standing there was a tall man wearing a black hood. Dr. Pendulum peered deep into the hood but could see nothing except a dark, shadowed face. Tiny slits of light were where the eyes should be. He stood there, motionless. There was something mysterious and powerful about this figure standing before him, almost as if Dr. Pendulum now had no control over his own actions. He tried again to look into the shadows of the hood, but could see nothing. The hooded figure took a step forward, and the professor instinctively stepped back to let him walk inside, although he didn't know why. Dr. Pendulum, said the hooded man in a deep and resonant voice. It sounded almost like his voice did not belong to this world. Maybe it was being blasted through a speaker system from another dimension. It was both loud and quiet simultaneously, like it was inside his head or reverberating inside his skull, maybe even coming from another universe. Either way, when he heard the voice, he was powerless to do anything else but listen. The hooded man casually walked around the doctor's laboratory, scrutinizing his files and scientific apparatus. Although he did not touch anything, The doctor could tell he was looking at everything very intently from within the shadows of the hood. "I have a job for you." "Doctor," said the hooded man, "a very important job. One that only you can accomplish." The doctor found himself extraordinarily intrigued. "Oddly B, are you aware of my work?" The hooded man nodded slowly. "Yes, I have been studying your work. It has great potential, but requires a serious investment." "An investment?" The doctor smiled. "Are you in the market to invest in my work?" There was silence. A deafening silence. "No," said the hooded man with great finality in his voice. "I shall not finance your work. I shall finance my work, and you will accomplish the tasks I set out for you." "Will I now?" said the doctor, feeling something eerie in his stomach, and as he spoke he could also feel the hairs on his back standing on their end. "Yes, I shall pay you very handsomely. More money than you could ever dream of. Enough to complete your life's work without any more interruptions." The doctor smiled. "That's a lot of money." "Money is of no consequence to me," said the hooded man. He paused and tilted his head slightly to the right, almost as if he was listening for something in the distance. Then he looked directly into the doctor's eyes, and immediately a pendulum felt an eerie coldness wash all over his body. "So, do we have a deal?" The doctor felt powerless. He just stood there, staring into the man's dense black hood. When he spoke, the words seemed to tumble from his mouth as if he had no say in the matter. The decision was already made for him by powers far greater than his. "What do you want me to do?" A small pause, a clicking sound from within the hooded man's black shadows. "I want you to make me a time machine." "A time machine?" The doctor was slightly taken aback. "You want to make you a time machine?" "Yes. That is what I want you to make for me." The doctor could not help but laugh. "Oh, well, if it's a time machine you want, give me 2 days and I'll knock one together for you." "This is no laughing matter. You're serious, aren't you? You want for me to invent you a time machine, correct? I will pay you handsomely for it." The doctor was intrigued and nervous all at once by the strange man's intensity. "I would love to, but really I would not know where to start. Perhaps you have the wrong man." Another silence. Then suddenly, the hooded man clapped his hands. There was a quick flash of light and a loud bang. At this moment, the doctor blinked uncontrollably. When he opened his eyes, the room was very different. There were books everywhere, hundreds of books stacked on top of one another, many clattered all over the floor. He rummaged through them, and to his surprise, they all seemed to be strange and rare-looking objects, all written on the subject of interdimensional time travel. He turned round to his desk and noticed a large circular orb sitting on a square stand. Within the orb glowed a green light, and it seemed to emanate a humming sound. He looked at the hooded man with a mixture of chilled confusion and disorientation. "What the hell just happened?" he blurted out. The hooded man stared deep into his eyes. The darkness seemed all around him. "The time machine is half complete. You will finish it." The doctor looked at the stranger in his lab for answers. He looked at the orb, which was pulsating. He grabbed some nearby books. "Who are you?" The hooded man stared deep into his soul, before slowly gliding backwards towards the door. "I shall return when my time machine is complete." The doctor opened his mouth to say something, but it was too late. In a second, the hooded man walked through the door, gently closing it behind him. The doctor ran towards the door and looked outside. The street was completely silent and devoid of any signs of human life. The entire world was asleep. It was as if no one had ever been there at all. He shut the door and surveyed his new laboratory. The green orb pulsated, making a deep, throbbing sound. The doctor looked at the books scattered everywhere. He looked at the door. He looked at the orb. Build a time machine. Now, how hard could that be, I wonder? Without knowing why, he ran over to the orb and peered inside. He picked up a nearby book and began to scour its pages, listening to the unearthly hum within the sphere as he read. When it came to constructing time machines, there was no time like the present. He set to work immediately. Hours soon became days, and days turned to months as he pored over all the ancient tomes left in his laboratory by the strange hooded figure. He soon became consumed by this project, his new search to discover a mystery that had eluded many for thousands of years, the quest to harness the complexities of time and become its master. He pored over the manuscripts into the early hours and tinkered with the orb, gradually over time building an elaborately constructed device around the glowing sphere, built from the countless arrays of information he found in his new library of time. Sometimes he would stumble home in the early hours of the morning, and other times he would not go home at all, and instead would stay awake for days in the lab. People knocked at his door. He ignored them. The phone rang. He ignored it. His wife demanded he seek counseling. He ignored her. The scientific guild revoked his license. He didn't care. He had to become a fanatic, a being overcome by some form of possession. Completely out of control, he lived in his laboratory for an entire year, losing friends and family, madness in his eyes and massive beard showing months and months of physical neglect. The doctor cared about nothing anymore except completing his time machine. That was all that mattered to him. All else was irrelevant. He studied, he built, he created. 12 months running on adrenaline and insanity, using the box's blueprints, conducting archaic and arcane experiments, gradually building into the structure that would become his time machine. Nothing would stop him in this endeavor. Soon the world would see the true scope of his genius. He did whatever it took. Reading, deciphering ancient codes, conducting chemical and alchemical experiments, building an elaborate mechanism to harness the power he had discovered. He worked furiously until he reached his goal. Insanity beckoned, but it was worth it for what he was uncovering. This was the true science, the science of chaos, the science of time and space, the science of the time machine. Nothing could stop him. And one day, he stood in his laboratory and looked at his handiwork. There, standing before him, was a large round machine resembling a cage. The orb was set deep inside as now the nucleus of the contraption. The structure itself almost took up the entire room, shimmering with gold and steel, covered in clicking lights and whirring valves. His work was complete. A machine that operated on similar principles to his own prior poultry experiments. He had found a way to harness the speed of light, and in doing so, dismantled the molecular structure of time as it was then understood, rebuilding it infinitely and repeating the process 1,000,000 times in the blink of an eye. He looked at the giant structure that stood before him. He smiled, knowing he had done his utmost. Only time would tell if it worked. He chuckled to himself and walked inside. Once in, he fastened the golden door shut behind him, now surrounded by lights. The green orb beneath his feet humming. He pulled several levers and inserted some diodes into his retina. With extreme thought and self-control, he pulled several more levers, visualizing a particular time in his mind's eye. He imagined the Middle Ages so strongly in his mind that it was almost like a picture in front of him. He could see the sights and sounds of a 15th century village, with all tunic-draped folk walking around, tending to horses and going about their crafts. It became real in his mind. He could feel large impulses of electricity all around him, exploding lights and sounds so terrible that it was deafening to his ears. Then there was a blinding flash of light, and he felt mind-numbing pain sear through his body as his entire molecular structure was ripped to shreds and then regelled as time and space bent and turned in upon itself. The pain was unbearable, but mercifully brief. The noise became all-powerful, and the white light was everywhere. Smoke rose, and suddenly, as quickly as it became, everything stopped. The white light subsided, and there was silence, stillness, and calm. The doctor fell to his knees in agony. His entire body felt like it had been sandpapered down to a nub. He caught his breath and slowly stood up. With great trepidation and an equal amount of excitement, he walked outside. He was in a medieval village. Small stone huts were dotted around the place just as he expected. However, the rest of the scene was not what he had anticipated. The sky was red and smoke was women and children rushed in the direction, screaming. Knights on horseback galloped in circles with swords raised, screaming. In the sky were what appeared like giant, and through his punk, the doctor watched gargantuan winged creatures come out of them, flying out of them, screeching with red eyes flashing as they swooped down on unsuspecting people, grabbing their children and breathing fire and venom dripped everywhere. The doctor turned to see some kind of free-headed winged animal coming straight for him, its mouth open, revealing large, blood and gore-spattered teeth. He screamed and darted back the way he came for the inner sanctum of his time machine, bolting the door shut. Once inside, he frantically pulled levers and inserted the diodes into his retina again. Outside, he could hear monstrosities clutching and scraping at the time machine, attempting to gain entrance. Frantically, he pulled switches and levers, concentrating deeply within his mind, conjuring up the image of his laboratory as vividly as he could. The sounds outside intensified. People screamed, monsters growled. Then there was a flash of light, and the doctor felt his molecules explode and implode and collide into one. The sound reached a deafening level, and then everything stopped. He slumped down to his haunches, collected his breath, and crawled outside the time machine into the safety of his laboratory. He looked around. Everything was as it was when he had left. He sighed deeply in relief and walked to the bathroom. He needed to splash some water on his face after witnessing the atrocities he had just observed. He opened the bathroom door, walked toward the sink, and cupped his hands with water. He looked into the mirror and was shocked by what he saw. The reflection in the mirror was that of the hooded man, and he seemed to be laughing. Oh, ha 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 ha.